Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 756, 756, April 19th, 2018, Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in. So I apologize about yesterday's video, video day 755. It was a failed upload. I was able to get the video uploaded, but not until like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the evening, Eastern Standard Time. So if you didn't see 755 yesterday, it did post up last night about 8 o'clock. So if you want to go check it out, it's there. But let's go ahead and move on with TowerGate Day 756. By the way, 755 is awfully good. There are some revelations, more revelations from Papagalopoulos, some bombshells. So you might want to take a look at video 755 if you missed it on Thursday. Now, let's go ahead and get to today's video. Of course, we're talking about the Mueller Report has been released. Of course, it hasn't been time for too many people to go through it. It's 400 and some odd pages, 448 pages, I believe. But just the initial take from what I've seen from the Giuliani interview and a couple other interviews, Meadows and Jordan and others, it appears that it is pretty much what we expected. It appears that they are using the Papagalopoulos Downer meeting as the primary reason for the counterintelligence operation. They're essentially still sticking with the idea that Downer was a straight player and that type of thing. The dossier apparently is not mentioned at all by word by the name dossier. They debunk quite a few things in the dossier, but they don't actually mention the dossier. Christopher Steele's mentioned in there about 14, 15 times, but nothing about his relationship to the dossier. It appears to be pretty much what we all expected, which is they leave out a lot of things that would be considered exculpatory evidence, and they only put in the things that make it look like Trump is guilty of something or people around him are suspicious or what have you. They leave out things that would basically be exculpatory. This is pretty much what we expected. In other words, this will give the media, a little bit to chew on, maybe give the Jerry Nadler and some of his freaks maybe something they can try to find an investigation, possibly try to go for some impeachment, although I doubt Pelosi is that stupid to let herself be pushed into that. She'll probably put the kibosh on, that would be my guess. I'd be very surprised if Pelosi gives the okay for any type of impeachment vote. I'm not so sure it would even pass, even if they had the vote. But this is pretty much what we expected of the Mueller report. It'll take a couple days for everyone to totally digest it, but ultimately, in a week from now, it'll be forgotten about. And the next thing that will be happening is I'm pretty confident that Barr, the IG report, various other investigations are ongoing, that in a week from now, people will be pretty much over the Mueller report, and except for the crazies and the Democrats in Congress, they'll still be trying to dig through it and find something they can use for further investigations, but it's going nowhere. It's just a big fat nothing. Okay, but the thing to think about is that 6 months from now, the only thing that people are going to remember about the Mueller investigation is that it was a fraud, based on a fraud. Because, my friends, the truth is coming out. Be patient. Hang in there. The truth is coming out. And Uncle Bob and his team of the Hillary donor posse, they're going to have a lot of questions to answer on their own right. Because they're going to be made to either look like complete incompetents or criminals. Take your pick. Now, I have to say that I'm like a lot of you. I'm watching Attorney General Barr very closely. My initial impression of him, having been in the CIA, the Bush 41 Attorney General, he's been part of the swamp. He comes out of the swamp. He looks like he's from the swamp. He hangs around everyone that's in the swamp. So I didn't have very high expectations of Barr, but up to this point, I cannot argue with what he's done. He put the kibosh on the Mueller investigation, got that done, got that report out quickly. I think he handled it very, very well. I think he's handled everything very well up to this point. And I really get the impression, watching the way he handled those lefty-loony reporters in that press conference today, the way he handled them today gives me a lot of confidence in Barr. It tells me one thing right off the bat: this guy does not take crap from liberals. Okay, he wasn't, is they were asking these questions about, yeah, do you, a lot of people were saying that this makes it look like you're, representing Trump as opposed to representing the United States as the Attorney General, or you're acting more like Trump's lawyer, blah 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 blah. They 3 or 4 reporters tried to hit him with that kind of slander, and it didn't even, he didn't bat an eye. He blew him off, shut him up, and twisted him into knots like a pretzel. And made him look pretty stupid pretty quickly. So we know right now, just from that press conference and watching how Barr handled those people, that this dude does not get rattled. And this dude is very smart, by the way. He's very smart, very quick on his feet. I think he knew exactly what type of things were going to be thrown at him. And it looked like to me that he is a guy who doesn't take any shit, especially from lefties. He knew this stuff was coming, and he handled himself beautifully in that press conference today. But I think the thing that I noticed right off the bat was Rodentstein. How many of you paid attention to Rodentstein as Barr was giving this little presser this morning? Rodentstein literally looked almost like he was petrified. In fact, he looked to me like he was kind of maybe constipated. I was wondering if somebody was going to turn around and offer Rodentstein some Metamucil or a Tum or some Pepto-Bismol or something, because he looked like he was, irregular. You know what that means? Irregular. Just another way of saying that your poop ain't right. Irregular. Just another way of saying that your poop ain't right. Irregular. Anyway, so so Rodentstein looked like he was having some issues. He looked pasty white. His beady little eyes were darting around. He had this really stoic look on his face. He just looked almost like he was constipated or something. I mean, he did not look, let's put it this way, Rodentstein looked very uncomfortable standing back there behind Barr while Barr was laying all this out. So not sure what was going through Rodentstein's mind, but something tells me there was a lot of things going through his mind, and none of them were making him feel very good, by the way. But yeah, I mean, hopefully you got a chance to watch that short little press conference that Barr did, and then particularly the question part at the end where he took questions. And having seen the way he handled that tells me a lot. Like I said, I think that we may have the right guy here. I really believe that. I'm about 90% convinced now that we definitely have the right Attorney General. Because this is, dude, I can tell watching him today, I don't think he's intimidated. I don't think he's at all the least bit freaked out about having an investigation and actually naming names and indicting people. I don't think he'd have any problem with it all, even though these are people he's known in the DOJ, like Comey and all these guys. He's known these guys forever. He knows them well, Mueller, Comey, and the whole 9 yards. But I got the impression today watching him that he's kind of a by-the-book guy and will uphold the rule of law, just like he kind of said he would. I have pretty good feelings about Barr after watching that press conference and watching the way he handled those liberals. I mean, that was as good as I've seen anybody. I mean, he takes no crap, let's put it that way. He doesn't get into a lot of small talk with them or arguments with them. He shuts them down very, very quickly and makes them look kind of stupid in the process. So we're dealing with a smart dude and a guy who, quite honestly, doesn't look to me like he's intimidated at all. And he doesn't look like someone who's in fear of doing what he has to do to set the record straight and tell the truth and get to the bottom of what really happened in 2016. Feeling pretty good about Barr. How about you? So, as Barr was reading off this stuff that he had written down there about the Mueller report, and he gets to the part where he says the same thing pretty much that Rodentstein said months ago, which is that there were no Americans working with the Russians. And so now I'm kind of wondering, what does that mean for Roger Stone? Obviously, they've backed off of Michael Caputo. I don't think anything's going to happen there. Jerome Corsi, it appears that they've lost interest in Jerome Corsi. The only guy that's still hanging out there is Stone. But based on what Barr said today, it sounds to me like Stone has got a pretty good case for himself. Because the only thing really left, if there was no collusion with Russians or anything like that, and you read Barr's statement or listen to Barr's statement today, it only really leaves one thing that they could be talking about, and that is that Stone had some sort of a, in cahoots with Assange or somebody connected to Assange and the WikiLeaks. unless they're going to try to get him on a process crime of lying to, or misleading or something like that. He failed the memory test. But that doesn't appear to be what they were going for. They were going for he's got a connection to Assange or what have you. So I think what Barr said in his press conference today, it sounds like it will bode pretty well for Roger Stone. I wouldn't be surprised to see if they drop the charges against him. But if he does go forward, he just said a couple of days ago that he will call Assange as a witness. I don't think that they'll ever get Assange there, but it's a nice try. So we'll keep focused on keep our eyes peeled, I should say, for what happens moving forward with Stone after what we heard Barr say today. I love the part where Barr was asked what he thinks about some people saying that he's acting as the president's lawyer. And his response, he had 2 or 3 different questions, all basically saying the same thing about that. And essentially what he said was that Mueller did not intend for Congress to make the decision on obstruction. He said it is for the Attorney General, and he made it. So they're questioning Barr, and they're like, well, what do you think about the Congress that are going to investigate based on this and this and this? And do you think that there's stuff there and that, stuff that Mueller put there, he didn't make a decision on obstruction, he left it up in the air, maybe for the Congress or for someone else. And at which point, Barr comes back and says, well, I don't think he left it up to Congress. He left it up to me. I'm the Attorney General. It's my call. I don't think he left anything up for the Congress to decide. He couldn't make a case for obstruction. He kicked it back to us, me and Rodentstein. We looked at it. We don't think the case is there, and that's it. It's not in the role of Congress. Of course, he says, Congress can go ahead and do what they're going to do, but the fact of the matter is, let's think about this. Let's just say that Nadler and those guys do go through with it. They're not going to get an investigation to the DOJ because we just had one, and we just had the Attorney General say there's nothing there. All that leaves them is a possible impeachment. But that means that they have to get enough votes to get it out of the House, and then it has to go to the Senate where the trial would be. First of all, I'm not so sure they have the votes to even get it out of the House. I'm not so sure Pelosi supports it. And even if they get it to the Senate, that would be Lindsey Graham's call. The Senate can take it and say, well, we're going to choose to move forward and have a trial, or we're not. And I think at this point, Lindsey Graham will look at it and say, this is totally political. The Attorney General's exonerated him. Mueller had no finding. It's over. No, we're not going to have a trial in the Senate. It's over. Pound sand. I think that's very likely could happen as well. I think that's how it may go. Nothing to worry about. Another reporter, I love the way he smacked this reporter down. Another reporter said something about, well, did you give Mueller the opportunity to come and be on stage with you today and speak to us today or whatever? And do you have any problem with Mueller speaking to us? After all, it is his report. Mueller looks right at the reporter, Barr looks right at that reporter and goes, no, it's not Mueller's report. It's my report. Mueller, working for me, he did the report for me. It's my report, not Mueller's report. And if Mueller wants to talk to the media, if he wants to testify in front of Congress, I don't care. Well done. Well done, Mr. Barr. Well, the Australian government has responded to the FOIA requests about the Downer-Papadopoulos meetings and the role of Australia in the 2016 campaign. And here's some things that they put out in this letter. This is the Australian government. So they're saying that on March the 7th through March the 13th of 2016, Comey visited Australia. March 7th through the 13th of 2016, Comey visited Australia. 3 days later, James Clapper visited Australia. Then, on May 10th, Downer meets with Papadopoulos in London. And they were put together through an intermediary, Erica Thompson. Unfortunately, in this letter, the Australian government doesn't tell you that they both were working as intelligence officials or working with intelligence officials or working on some sort of a setup or a frame-up. No, they don't say any of that. They just acknowledge that these meetings and these events took place. Then they say that Downer informed the U.S. Embassy in London about his conversation with Papadopoulos after the release of the DNC emails on July the 22nd, 2016. So we've had 3 different stories. This was, I think, the second story we got. The first story was he related through this Australian official who's like equal to our State Department, head of our State Department, Secretary of State. That got pretty debunked. Then this story came up. Then there was another story where he gave it to someone in London that was in British intelligence. So the official position of the Australian government is that Downer gave it to or informed the U.S. Embassy in London about his conversation with Papadopoulos after the release of the DNC emails on July 22nd. And they're saying that Papadopoulos told Downer that Misfit told him that the Russians have dirt on Hillary. Of course, we know that Papadopoulos denies this. He says he recalls the conversation with Downer very well, and he says he doesn't recall that the topic of Russia or dirt on Hillary ever even came up. Now, we've been told that there is a recording of this. Papadopoulos seems to have gotten that impression from his hearings and from certain things that Mark Meadows has stated. So Papadopoulos believes there is a tape. If there is a tape, if there is a recording, some kind of recording of the meeting between Papadopoulos and Downer, then I would expect that Barr at some point is going to hear that. And we'll find out exactly whether or not Papadopoulos ever said anything to Downer. We need to hear that tape if it exists, because that'll tell us everything we need to know. So then, on May 6th of 2016, 10 days after the meeting with Misfit, Papadopoulos suggested to a representative of a foreign government. They don't give the name of that official. All they say is on May 6th, 2016, which would be 4 days before the Papadopoulos Downer meeting. So 4 days before the 4 days before the Downer Papadopoulos meeting, Papadopoulos is supposed to have said something to a representative of a foreign government, that the Trump campaign had received indications from the Russian government that it could assist the campaign through the anonymous release of information that would be damaging to Hillary Clinton. Who would this representative of a foreign government be? May 6, 2016. It's 4 days before the Pops Downer meeting, 10 days after the meeting between Misfit and Papadopoulos. Papadopoulos supposedly told a representative of a foreign government that the Trump campaign had received indications from the Russian government that it could assist the campaign through the anonymous release of information that would be damaging to Hillary Clinton. I can't wait to hear Papadopoulos comment on this, because at this point he'll probably tell us who that person is or if this is even true. Now, on July the 23rd of 2016, the Australian government contacted Elizabeth Dibble at the U.S. Embassy to inform her about Downer and Papadopoulos' conversation. This is the Australian government's word. Somehow, the information was transmitted to the FBI, and Crossfire Hurricane was then opened on July 31st, 2016 by the FBI. Let me read that to you one more time. On July the 23rd of 2016, which would be 1 day after the release of the DNC emails, and 1 day after Downer allegedly went to the U.S. Embassy in London to relate to them the conversation he had had with Papadopoulos, 1 day after that, the Australian government contacted Elizabeth Dibble at the U.S. Embassy to inform her about Downer and Papadopoulos' conversation. Somehow, the information was transmitted to the FBI, and the Crossfire Hurricane investigation was opened on July 31st, 2016 by the FBI. 2 days after Crossfire Hurricane was opened on July 31st, 2016, 2 days later, on August the 2nd, 2016, Peter's been stroking us, and another FBI agent met with Downer. April 2nd, 2016, 2 days after the beginning of Operation Crossfire Hurricane, Peter's been stroking us, and another FBI agent met in London with Down the Hatch Downer. In London, to discuss the Downer and Papadopoulos conversation. And we know who else was in town. Bill Priestap was also in town. Remember, Downer and Halper are very good buddies. Very good buddies. Know each other very well. Have spoken at various functions together. Know each other very well. Halper and Downer. There is nothing about this in the description from the Australian government. Nothing about Downer knowing Halper. Nothing about Downer's past as an intelligence asset. Nothing about his relationship with the Clintons. Nothing about whether or not he was acting as a spy or in some sort of a intelligence operation. So they give no real good reason why a high-level diplomat like Alexander Down the Hatch Downer would want to sit down and have a conversation with a volunteer campaign worker for Donald Trump who nobody's ever heard of, and with whose policies Downer disagreed. Why would Downer have the least bit of interest in Papadopoulos? The Australian government doesn't say, but something tells me that Mr. Downer may someday have to answer that question. Downer, Halper, and Misfit, as I said a week ago, those three, Downer, Halper, Misfit, need to be questioned. And when you expose those three, and expose the truth about those three, this whole thing blows up. It all blows up. The Mueller Report barely discusses the dossier. The word dossier never appears at all in the Mueller Report, unless it's one of those things that's redacted. Fusion GPS is never discussed in the Mueller Report, unless it's something that's redacted. Christopher Steele is mentioned 14 times in the 448-page document. The Mueller Report says that Michael Cohen being in Prague, that story was false. He also says in the Mueller Report that the PP tape was fake. Then we have, of course, the crazy lunatics on the left, starting with the craziest of the bunch, Jerry Nadler. He says that the Mueller Report is an impeachment roadmap. Yeah, well, let me tell you what, that's a roadmap to getting wiped out in the 2020 elections, Jerry, so go right ahead. Go right ahead. You'll be looking like a damn fool as the truth is coming out while you're doing this silly investigation. The real facts will come out, and you'll be left looking really stupid, and your party will get hammered in 2020. So keep it up, Jerry, you moron. Now, Nadler wasn't done. He said that he is going to summon Mueller to testify. Oh, really? Oh, good. Oh, that would be fantastic. Because I'm sure that Matt Gaetz, Jordan, and Meadows, who sit on that committee, along with a couple others, I think Ratcliffe may even be in that committee. Oh, I'm sure they'd love to have a crack at Uncle Bob, don't you think? Oh, they got a lot of questions for Uncle Bob. Go ahead, Mr. Nadler. Bring Mueller in. I think that would be fantastic. I'm sure that right now there's nothing more that Meadows, Jordan, Gates, and Ratcliffe, nothing more. They would love nothing more than to get a crack at Uncle Bob. And bring Mr. Weissman with you when you come, Uncle Bob. Also, in the Mueller report, the number one man who was the target of the FISA, which is what was used for all the FISA spy warrants, the unmaskings, and all the other things, Carter Page. The Mueller report completely clears Carter Page. All the allegations made about Carter Page are false. False. See, the entire dossier literally being debunked in the Mueller report without ever mentioning the word dossier, Hillary Clinton, or confusion GPS. That's not going to work out. Nope, I'm sorry, that's not going to work out. You see what I mean? About leaving out exculpatory evidence? The Mueller report also exonerates Trump and Trump Jr. on the Trump Tower meeting. In addition to that, it also says that Nskaya tried to get follow-up meetings, but the Trump team did not engage. That's right. The Mueller report never mentions that Nskaya was working for Confusion GPS along with Mr. Akhmechan. It also says nothing about Nskaya's meeting with Fusion GPS before and after the Trump Tower meeting. They leave those little details out. But I'm pretty sure that Horowitz will not leave that out, and I'm absolutely sure, that AG Barr is not going to leave those details out. So, that's pretty much the long and short of it. I imagine there'll be some more stuff coming out over the next couple of days. But if you read the Epoch Times headline story today, basically what they're talking about is Trump's head campaign chairman for 2020, Brad Parscale, basically said, okay, now we've got this behind us. Now it's time to find out what really happened, how this investigation all got started, where all this information came from, and who was behind it. Brad Parscale, that's what he's asking. Smart dude, by the way. Very smart dude. And this is a question that Trump and his entire team are now going to be asking. And it is exactly what AG Barr is looking at right now. Now that the Mueller report is out, he's done what he's supposed to do. He's put the report out. He's done the redactions he had to do legally. He's going to come and testify to Congress. But ultimately, he is going to continue this investigation. We're going to get the Horowitz report out. And I don't think we're looking at like a year or 2 years of investigation. Something tells me Barr is going to be moving very quickly on this. A lot of the legwork has already been done by the Congress. So I just get the impression, looking at Barr and looking at the way that the narrative is now shifting very, very quickly. This narrative is now very quickly shifting into, okay, so there was no collusion. None of this stuff actually happened. As is pointed out, even in the Mueller report, the Trump Tower meeting, nothing. The only thing that they really have got to hang their hat on is the Papadopoulos Downer meeting, and that's going to be blown up very soon. They completely take the dossier, Fusion GPS, all that stuff kind of goes away. They debunk almost all that. The Carter Page stuff, the Michael Cohen going to Prague. These are the key parts of the dossier, all blown up in the Mueller report. So that begs the question, then how in the hell did this investigation get started? And the only thing they've got to hang their hat on is Papadopoulos Downer. Now, Papadopoulos has got a book out, and he's been hitting the media circuit pretty hard. And he's describing the whole situation with Downer as being an obvious setup. And when you look at the connections between Halper and Downer and his relationship with intelligence, the Clintons, and his hatred of Donald Trump, and all the other things, and the way Misfit fits into this picture, it appears very obvious to me and to anyone, I think, and it will be obvious, very obvious, to Attorney General Barr that this entire meeting with Pops and Downer was a setup. So if the Mueller report basically debunks essentially the dossier, and the only thing that they have left is Downer Papagalopoulos, and that is going to be blown up probably, I would think, in the next week or two. Barr probably already knows it was a hoax. So once that's blown up, then, and not just blown up, but proven that it was a setup, what it's ultimately going to prove is that there was no real reason to ever have an investigation, and that the entire thing was a hoax. The entire thing was a frame-up, a setup. That's what it was. It was an attempted coup. That's the only thing that is going to make any sense. It's the only thing that's going to matter in about, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 months from now. I'd say about 6 months. I'd say give Barr 6 months. I'd say by probably the latter part of summer, early fall, if not sooner, the whole house of cards is going to collapse. And it's not just the perps like Comey and McCabe and Lynch and all those. This thing is going to go all the way to the top. All the way to the top. And it's going to expose the rotten Reverend Clinton. There's other things out there as well. Not just the Ukrainian situation, but other things as well. This is all going to just pile on and pile up. And by the time we get to the end of the summer, this entire thing is going to be just blown up completely. And the media is going to be left completely shell-shocked. The establishment is going to be dumbfounded. The perps are going to be shaking. If they haven't turned already, they certainly will be by then. And I expect that they're already turning right now. It's possible that there are people right now in the process of coming forward. And, you know, if Barr wanted to get to the bottom of this thing very, very quickly, I can tell you how he could do it. Inspector General Huckleberry Horowitz gave 3 criminal referrals against McCabe. A criminal referral with 3 charges against McCabe a long time ago. If Barr wants to get to the bottom of this really quickly, all he has to do is inform the Justice Department that he wants to go ahead and indict McCabe. The very next thing McCabe will do, remember what he said? If you try to dump it all on me, I'm going to burn the whole effing thing down. He's going to burn the whole effing thing down. You want to get to the bottom of this real quickly, and you want to find your first guy to turn? Indict McCabe. He's already got the criminal referrals right there, and he's guilty. Indict McCabe, and watch how fast he comes in with his lawyer to start composing, singing, whatever you want. He'll give it all to you to save his neck. And he'll give up Comey just, Comey said he's willing to testify against McCabe. He essentially already has. His statement would suggest that either he or McCabe are lying. And you can see where they're choosing sides. It appears that Peter's been stroking us and McCabe are going to try to stick together and face off against Comey. So it's going to be Comey's word versus Strzok and McCabe. None of them have any credibility at all. I don't know who you believe. But there's no doubt, if you want to get to the bottom of this, indict McCabe and watch how fast he turns. Watch how fast he sings. That'd be my suggestion, AG Barr. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll be back with you tomorrow. You have a good night. See you. Bye.